Skinwalker legends have haunted the American Southwest for generations, whispered in hushed tones by those who believe these shape-shifting entities walk among us. And though skeptics dismiss them as folklore, many people have come forward with encounters so chilling they defy ordinary explanation. Like the experience of Thomas, who was driving late at night through a desolate stretch of Navajo reservation land with his cousin, the rain having just subsided and the air heavy with the smell of wet earth, when out of the corner of his eye he saw something moving alongside the car, keeping pace effortlessly despite his speed, and at first he thought it was a coyote. But as he accelerated to nearly 60 miles per hour, the figure rose onto two legs, its limbs elongating grotesquely, its eyes glowing with an unnatural red hue as it pounded across the ground beside them, and the cousins could hear a high-pitched screech echoing above the roar of the engine. And when Thomas dared glance again, he swore it smiled at him, lips peeling back over sharp teeth, before veering off suddenly into the darkness, disappearing without a trace. And when they told their grandfather the next day, he grew grave and warned them never to speak of it again, telling them that acknowledging a skinwalker only gives it more power, a warning that has haunted Thomas ever since. Another unnerving account comes from Elena, a young woman who grew up in New Mexico and spent many summers camping with friends in the desert. And on one trip, they pitched tents near a canyon, enjoying a fire under the stars, when in the middle of the night, she woke to the sound of someone calling her name in her mother's voice, soft and coaxing, coming from just outside the tent. And though her friends were asleep, she froze, recognizing that her mother was miles away at home. And when she tried to muster the courage to look, the shadow of something hunched passed by the thin fabric of the tent, its shape vaguely human, but with elongated arms and a loping, unnatural gait. And as she lay trembling, the voice continued, now switching between her mother's tone, then her brother's, then her best friend's, as though something outside was cycling through the voices of people she loved to lure her out. And it was only when she began to silently pray that the sound stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. And when dawn came, she found strange claw-like prints circling her tent, deeper and wider than any coyote, as though something had been crawling around her all night. She told no one except her grandmother, who warned her that skinwalkers mimic voices to trick people into leaving the safety of shelter. And Elena has never camped near that canyon again. The third story belongs to a man named David, who worked as a security guard at a rural construction site in Arizona, the area surrounded by desert scrub and isolated from the nearest town. And one night while making his rounds, he noticed movement near the chain-link fence, assuming it was an animal. But when he shone his flashlight, he saw a man standing unnaturally still, his body thin and naked, his skin stretched tightly over bones. And before David could call out, the man dropped to all fours and began running toward him with terrifying speed, his limbs bending wrong, his joints cracking loudly in the still night air. And David panicked, fumbling for his radio, as the creature stopped just outside the circle of his flashlight, rising again to two legs, its head cocked unnaturally far to the side, and in a rasping, broken voice, it repeated David's own words from the radio moments earlier. All clear on the west side, mocking him with his own tone, and he backed away slowly until he reached the guard shack, locking himself inside as the figure paced outside for hours, occasionally scratching at the walls, until just before sunrise, when it finally left. And though David reported seeing an intruder, he never mentioned the mimicry, fearing no one would believe him. But to this day, he refuses to work night shifts in isolated areas, convinced he had looked into the face of something inhuman. These three encounters, Thomas's skinwalker racing his car at inhuman speed, Elena's terrifying night of voices outside her tent, and David's confrontation with the mimic at the fence, capture why the legend of the skinwalker endures. For whether creature, witch, or spirit, the stories describe beings that break the rules of nature, twisting familiarity into horror. By running faster than humans, should speaking in voices they should not possess, and wearing faces that should not exist. And for those who have encountered them, the desert night has never been the same. Because once you've felt a skinwalker watching, running, or whispering, the silence of the wilderness is no longer comforting, but a reminder that something ancient and malevolent still lurks in the shadows, waiting for another chance to be seen.